Welcome to Unpack the NUMAC, where we dive into the inner workings of the conference, the stories behind the stats, and the prestigious awards that make the NUMAC a powerhouse in Division III. We'll celebrate the academic excellence of our student athletes, the incredible leadership of our coaches and administrators, and break down the path to becoming national champions. It's a lot to unpack, and we're here to do it. It's time to unpack the NUMAC.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unpack the NUMAC. Today, we're talking about the legacy that is Springfield men's lacrosse. We're joined by coaches Keith Bugbee, Sean Quirk, and Kaden Quirk. Welcome, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for having us.
Of course, really excited to dive in here, but I think we would all agree that we can't talk Springfield lacrosse without talking about Coach Bugbee. 42 seasons, 432 wins, national championship. Coach, when I read those stats off to you, how does that make you feel?
It's just a little overwhelming. I mean, it's just amazing how the years just went. 42 seemed like who would have thought that when I started? I mean, I was probably like 25 years old when I started at Springfield, so it was just you never know what the future's going to bring. But just a lot of gratitude. To me, that just represents an awful lot of great guys and great coaches and great experiences, and I felt like I never went to work for 42 years, so a lot of gratitude, I guess, biggest thing I can say.
To me, maybe the most impressive thing is that, very few coaches have reached the number of wins that you have, but at the same time, you're the only coach to win their first 400 at the same institution, which is incredible. When you took this job, were you thinking, next 42 years of my life are going to be at Springfield?
No, and I will always have a great amount of appreciation and gratitude for Springfield for taking a chance on me. I mean, like I said, I was probably 20, I think it was 25, 26. I've been a high school coach. I hadn't been, I didn't have a great background, resume wise. And I was a GA for a year, and then the head coach I was working on decided to get out of coaching. So the position opened up, and I just right place, right time, I guess. And I really appreciate the college taking a chance on me. They, like I said, I didn't have an amazing resume, not like Coach Quirk coming in. There's a little different situation there with a lot of high background. But, and I've loved it, every minute of it, raised my family there, got them really involved in the program. And I just really I developed a love affair, I think, with Springfield College in general. It's just a great school. It just fit me perfectly. And the people I worked with and just the time I spent there was just amazing. It made retirement, good and bad, like a little hard to leave some of those people, but it was great.
I heard before we started recording, I heard that you're still around a lot. You haven't quite left Alden Street yet.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Quirk's been unbelievable. I mean, we have such a great relationship, and I'm sure this will come up again in some other questions, but I felt like we kept it in the family, and he's been incredibly great about making me feel so welcome. He probably had me there even more than I am there, which is great. But I just, out of respect for his program, and it's his gig now. I just want to make sure I give him plenty of space. But I just really enjoy being around the guys and the other coaches, and so I'm kind of like tiptoeing my way out of there, I guess, a little bit. But same turn, just trying to be respectful,
Of course. So Sean, you played for Coach, obviously, and now you're kind of stepping in at Springfield. What did you learn from him as a player that you didn't appreciate until you became a head coach yourself?
Oh, playing for Coach for 4 years, and really it even went back before that. Just when he was recruiting me out of high school, I could genuinely see the love that he had for his players. He came to watch me several times play when I was in high school in Cheshire, Connecticut, and he just was down to earth. You could tell he really had his players' best interest in them. And then my 4 years playing for him, my 2 years right after my playing career, coaching under him as a graduate assistant, just the way he prepared certainly me and really all of my teammates and those that came before us to really be great in the game of life, truly. And I knew immediately my freshman year, I wanted to be a college coach. That was my goal. And I always observed Coach, his philosophy, his style, how he interacted with his coaches, certainly his players, with myself. And I just tried to emulate myself really after him. And I became a student of the game and looked at a lot of other coaches outside of Springfield on how to kind of navigate this. And when I left after being a GA and became a head coach myself at, 24, 25 years old, the biggest takeaway I had was, certainly some X's and O's and strategy of the game on how we did things at Springfield, but more importantly, how to interact with 18 to 22-year-olds and build those relationships and treat your players and really establish a culture that was somewhat similar to Springfield's because it was so healthy, but at the same time, it was ultra competitive. And those were the greatest takeaways I took from Coach. It was just how to build relationships, as I said, and to try to establish a really strong culture day in, week out, month in, week out, and year to year, certainly.
So I think part of that culture is that it's a family culture. Kaden, you grew up around Springfield Lacrosse. Can you kind of pinpoint maybe your earliest memory of Springfield Lacrosse?
Yeah, and growing up, I think Coach Bugbee was really the person who I looked to when I, recognized Springfield Lacrosse, and someone that I was around a ton, early on in my life. Really that first memory, it doesn't have a whole lot to do with lacrosse, and I'm sure that'll, keep coming up throughout the rest of the show here. But the thing that I kind of remember the most when my dad was coaching at his previous institution, they were playing Springfield out at Stag Field on, probably Saturday in March, and my mom drove me and my sister out to Springfield for that game, and Coach Bugbee took us out to Cheney Dining Hall before it had that nice new renovation. And to be completely honest, I don't really remember too much from the lacrosse game itself, but I remember just having a meal with Coach Bugbee and my mom and sister, and really just appreciating that moment. And I think that really kind of speaks to what Coach Bugbee did here over his time as the head coach, and the relationship piece that he has with all of his players, but then also their families as well.
It always comes back to food. It's all about the food.
Oh yeah.
Right in people's hearts. So Kaden, your path to Springfield as a player, wasn't a straight path, had some forks in the road. Can you talk about how you decided that Springfield was ultimately the best fit for you as a player?
Yeah, coming out of high school, like starting that recruiting process at really 15, 16 years old, I just really wanted to play at a high level, and ended up going to St. John's University down in New York, where I was recruited by Coach Jason Miller, who is a Springfield alum, someone who till this day I have a great relationship with, and playing for someone that played under Coach Bugbee was a really important thing for me, coming out of high school to match that level of competition. As my journey there kind of progressed, I realized that change was probably beneficial for me, holistically. And to say that it was also a pretty hard time, leaving friends and leaving a place at St. John's that I grew to love. And the people who consistently checked in on me throughout that time ended up being a lot of Springfield alums and people that have came through the program. And Coach Bugbee was one that definitely came to mind. Coach Miller, who is no longer coaching at St. John's, is one that came to mind. Vinny Senator, another alum who was coaching at Springfield at the time. Those guys were all just checking in on me more so as a person. And I think as that process went of me deciding to transfer, the end in mind. It was more about what my experience would look like at Springfield within the culture of the program, as opposed to just being a lacrosse player there. And ultimately, I say it to coach all the time, one of the best decisions that I've ever made to finish out my playing career here.
That's great. You know, obviously things tend to work out the way they're supposed to work out. Coach, you obviously, again, I can read you the numbers, but the ability to sustain success for decades. Can you talk about what allowed you to continue to win and continue to bring in players that fit that culture?
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. The word you mentioned is culture. I think that's really is what's helped us sustain what we are. Is we have, I just think, a really solid, grounded culture, and that's just based on a bunch of variables. I mean, it's I guess I'm just part of that. You know, it's really the kind of coaches I bring in, the kind of players we bring in. I'm always telling my assistant coaches when they're out recruiting, just try to find Springfield kids, and a lot of my assistant coaches are Springfield guys, which is helpful because they can see those guys from a satellite. It's not hard to see what a Springfield kid looks like, because they know. And it's just not that they're any more special than any other kid. It's just a certain kind of kid that comes to Springfield College. And usually they're just, they're type A kids. They're a little more grounded. They just have a love of life. I mean, it's no coincidence so many of those guys are going into coaching after they leave Springfield, because just that kind of kid is appealed to that world. And, we've just been able to sustain that over the years. I think I tell my older alums, I say, if you came out to practice now, it would probably not seem much different than when you were here. It's a very similar kind of kid. They get after it every day. And, we have always challenged them with a really strong schedule. And I think they eat that up. And I just think, we've just had consistency. They know what they got. They certainly gonna know what they get from me. I'm about as level as I can possibly be with my guys. I don't try to go too high and too low, and just this is what the expectations are, and this is what we expected. And we just seem to bring guys in that really enjoy having those high expectations, and it's very clear what's expected of them. Just give it your best effort all the time. And they've just done that. We've had those kind of kids for so long. And Sean will do the same. He'll bring the same kind of kids in. He already has. I've talked to a lot of the kids he's recruiting, and I'm so excited about some of those kind of kids that he's attracting to the college. So that's really what sustains it. I think it's just the same kind of individual.
So you once said, "I'm not recruiting a kid for 4 years. I'm recruiting them for 40 years." Can you talk about what you meant by that?
Yeah, that's really probably the most important thing to me. And if at the end of the day, you said some nice stats and things like that, but I don't want those on my gravestone. I'd much rather put on my gravestone that he was a good man, a good husband, a good father, and he helped boys become men. And that to me is the most important thing. And at the end of the day, that takes care of the wins and losses. They'll just happen if they're meant to happen. But I'm much more concerned with what happens over 4 years and what kind of person they are when they come out. And I've been, on most all occasions, really, really excited to see what the end result has been for so many guys. Even over the course of 4 years, I see such a change in so many guys. But I think it's because they're expected to be at a certain level, and I think they rise to that level. And I think 2 examples on this podcast of what's happened after 4 years. Pretty special.
Yeah, so that's a great segue to Sean. Obviously, you left Springfield. You were able to build winning cultures at other institutions, professionally with the Boston Cannons. How much of that coaching DNA can we trace back to Alden Street?
Yeah, everything. Everything. It starts with the institution that you choose right through the process. And certainly in my case, and I speak for so many of the alumni, that it's also Coach Bugbee, right? You want to play for somebody that your values and everything else line up with directly. And through Springfield College, it's the mission of the institution, the humanics philosophy through spirit, mind, and body, that you lead and serve others. And as undergrad students, we live that mission. And I speak for so many of the alumni, not just lacrosse players, but we live that mission as humans when we leave Alden Street. And throughout my entire career, Coach mentioned it as well, is culture and the way you lead young men. The wins and losses take care of themselves at the end of the day. They really do. So whether it was myself as a head coach at the collegiate level for 18 years and then coaching the Cannons for 7 or 8 years, I just live that mission, and I do it in my personal life. I certainly do it in my coaching career. And that's what I took away from Alden Street as an institution. But really, there's no one that lives that mission more than Coach Bugbee, and we'll get into talking about showing up and that sort of thing as well, which is part of that mission that Coach brings. But it's what I've gone to work through and work with every single day of my career, with that at the focal point of my mind.
So you're the first new head coach at Springfield men's lacrosse in 42 years. You were quoted as saying, "No one can truly replace Coach Bugbee." What does the responsibility of being his successor feel like?
Yeah, to start, I'm proud, I'm honored. I'll say this, and I've talked to Coach a lot about this, over the last really 7-8 months that I've been back on Alden Street here, is the tradition at Springfield College dates back to 1928. This is a historic program. Coach Bugbee was here for 42 years. You look at, yes, his wins, the number of conference championships, winning a national championship, being so close to winning another. You look at the young men he's put out into the real world. Springfield has a rich tradition of phys ed and programs like that many of them are coaching at the youth, high school, middle school, collegiate, professional level, international level. But what gets lost is what all the other alumni are doing, whether they're in the business world or police officers or in the medical profession, is the alums are doing incredible things. And you look at all those achievements over his 42 years and, previously before that, there's not many lacrosse programs in Division 1 or 3 that have the tradition of winning and putting out the number of alums that Springfield College does. And what I've said to Coach, this is an extremely high pressure job. And every day, and it's a big reason I took this position, was to represent those alumni. And it's my duty to care for those alums and continue the tradition that we've had here for so long. And I personally thrive off pressure. I've been that way my entire playing and coaching career. And I love that. And it's a lot of it is self-inflicted pressure to do well. But it comes back to what Coach Bugbee's done here with every facet of the program. And for me to be the person to represent certainly his legacy and the alumni and continue to maintain that and continue to grow that is something I wake up every single morning when I put my 2 feet on the floor and say, we have a job to do and a program that we need to represent at the highest level in every single capacity.
So I heard a lot of alumni in that. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head here. Coach Bugbee, the Springfield has been referred to as Coach University because of how many players go on to coach. Like Sean said, high school, collegiately. When you were thinking about leaving, did you fully expect that one of your players would step in?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be truthfully honest with you. I really felt the program should be continued with an alum. I just think it's just too unique. I really think the tradition we have and just the culture here. I'm not saying someone who didn't go to Springfield couldn't continue it. I've had some GAs, some assistant coaches who aren't Springfield guys that have become kind of like affiliate Springfield guys just because they really bought into our culture and started drinking the Kool-Aid, I think, when they were here. And they do fine. But I just, honestly, I really felt like this is a program at Springfield. There's several programs at Springfield. I won't name other ones, but I think there's some athletic programs at Springfield College that, in my opinion, should always be coached by a Springfield grad. I just think their traditions are really too rich and the culture is too strong. And I really think we're one of them. I think we've just worked hard to become what we have. And I think an alum just gets it quicker and understands it. And so I was really hoping it would be. And then there's some, when push came to shove, when I found out that Sean was, I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit with some of your questions, but I found out that Sean was available. And it looked like it would fit his lifestyle and his timing of his life to make this change. He's the guy. I mean, I went on a bit of a mission at the college to make sure that people knew that, for those who did not know him, I made sure they knew what they were getting when they hired him. And there were lots of people that did know Sean and knew exactly what I was talking about. So it wasn't like it was hard, but I just made sure that, they understood, I mean, I joked and said, I'll burn the college down if you don't hire him, but I wasn't going to go that far, but I was definitely on a mission to make sure, because, he was an alum. I need an alum there, but I wanted that alum, Sean's the guy, I just know him so well. We're really close. And like I said, it's like we kept in the family, but it's not about me. It's about him. Like he knows what he wants to do with the program and what's important. And so, yeah, I was, and I haven't had to say too much. I told you so's on the campus. I knew they would see what I saw. And basically, I've had so many people come up and say, you were right. He's a great colleague, a great addition to the college, not just for the lacrosse team, definitely for that, but just in general, as a faculty member, or as a part of the institution. They're all like, yeah, you're right. And I said, yeah, it was easy though.
Well, I'm glad it didn't come down to arson. So
yeah, I know. I'd be in jail right now. Probably
here with us today. But also, you're able to add another branch to your coaching tree with Kaden. So Kaden obviously played for you, and now is also stepped in as an assistant. Kaden, obviously, you played. You were a captain, defensive leader. What did playing at Springfield under Coach Bugbee teach you about leadership?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's so much that I could unpack here and really talk pretty much all day about, lessons that I learned through my 2 years as a player here. I think the biggest thing, and kind of goes back to that question you asked earlier about my earliest memory, like there's so many little details that, I just briefly remember from practices, games, sitting in the locker room, hanging out around campus. I think the biggest thing I took away from Coach Bugbee and the way that he led was there truly was never a detail that was too small for him to do. And looking at that from a former player's perspective, if and you rattled off some of Coach Bugbee's accolades. If he wasn't too big to do those little details, why am I not? And you'd go out to warm up for practice, maybe 15, 20 minutes early, get some extra reps, and you look down at the opposite end of the field and Coach Bugbee's tying up the, loose ends of string on the lacrosse cages, right? Something that anyone could do, but one of the most winningest coaches in our sport is doing it himself. So I think he gave us as players a lot of autonomy to do things that we were passionate about, and really kind of threw us into the fire at points to lead our teammates and leave our mark on the program. And I think that player-led aspect is something that now coaching, I was able to iron out some of those wrinkles throughout my 2 years as a player here as well.
So at what point did you decide that you wanted to step into a coaching role?
Yeah, I think dating back, late middle school, early high school, I kind of had an idea that the coaching thing was potentially on my radar. Throughout my freshman and sophomore year, I tried out a couple different majors, went the finance route for a little bit, wasn't a big math guy. Was really passionate about teaching and obviously lacrosse, and super fortunate that last fall Coach Bugbee gave me the opportunity to take this position as a GA here with the men's lacrosse team, and so fortunate to be with our group every single day. Like he said earlier, it doesn't feel like you're ever going into work. You're doing the best thing in the world every single day, whether it's practice, film breakdown, just seeing guys around campus. It's awesome.
It's amazing to find something you're passionate about, and to know so young is amazing. When I was doing some research for this podcast, and I knew I was bringing Sean and Kaden on, and I was like, so cool. Like, you guys must be like the only father-son duo to have played for Coach Bugbee. Turns out there's 9, which is insane to me. Obviously, it speaks to the longevity and the culture that Coach Bugbee built. But how did both of you having that shared experience, how did that affect your relationship?
Who's that question for? Both of us?
Yeah.
Either one, Sean or Kaden, or both.
Yeah, I'll start. Sure. Again, just coming back, many years ago when I played for Coach and then coached under him, and really we've been best friends, for the last 30 plus years. And we talk, text just about every day. It's and then when Kaden was thinking about making the switch to Springfield, I didn't really honestly give a whole lot of input. He's a young man and has to make his own decisions, but in the back of my head and our family, certainly my wife, we're hoping, right, that he goes to Springfield and plays for a great program and will have great teammates. But to be led by Coach Bugbee, that's who you want your son playing for, and to just be mentored. And that's watching him play at Springfield. It certainly brought me back to my playing days there, watching him. But I was just always so proud that he was in a Springfield jersey and being tutored by Coach Bugbee and Springfield College. So.
Yeah, and I think just to build off that, for me, obviously a little bit different. Like we mentioned earlier, my journey here was a little bit different, but growing up around the program, growing up around Coach Bugbee and so many other alums that my dad played with, when I ended up transferring here, it just put into perspective all of those relationships and what they truly meant, with those people that I've known for quite some time. And then to wear the number 2 jersey that my dad wore a few years prior to me, was definitely pretty cool too, for sure.
So Coach Bugbee, obviously,
just for the record, there was no NCAA violation there in my recruiting of Kaden to come. I mean, it was, it was, we would see each other camps or talk and stuff. And, it was very much like, yeah, whatever, if you want to go to Springfield, but it wasn't no in-state violation. But, I had a little more inside track than most people have in recruiting him. So it was like again, like a family member, pretty cool,
We'll make that notation.
And by the way, Lindsay, that's pretty good research. 9 for you to find that there were 9 connection, parent, father, and sons. That's pretty good research right there, boy.
Yeah, I did some digging. I mean,
Good.
9 father-son duos is an insane number to me. Can you talk about what it's like to coach a father and then his son? Like, are you ever just like, just like his father? Like, geez,
Yeah, it's really interesting. Again, when you go back, you said that one of your original question, you ever think you'd be there for 42 years and all that? I mean, those are the kind of things you never envision. Like, okay, I'm going to be here long enough so that 9 of my guys, I'm going to coach their sons. I mean, I basically had to retire so I don't do their grandkids, I guess, basically pretty soon. So, but it really is really a real treat. And what's really cool about it is so many of those guys are also coaches, So it's you're not just coaching you're coaching a coach's kid too. Like I have plenty of kids on my team who are coaches' kids, not necessarily I coach their dads, and coaches' kids are really cool to coach. I mean, it's a really special, and that's what Springfield again is unique because we get a lot, not just in lacrosse and other sports too, but we get our share of coaches' kids. But then to have on top of that their dad played there too, it's really cool because I have such a cool relationship with a lot of those guys anyway. So it just carries over in a really unique way. I mean, Kaden was just, it's so much like Sean. They're so similar in so many ways with their effort and their commitment and they're just a quality human beings. Such a treat to be able to coach both of them. And they're unique in their own way, but they have a lot of great similarities, and like a lot of the other guys whose kids I've coached, whose dads I coached, really, really special. Don't take that for granted. I don't. I really value that.
Yeah, that is, like I said, that was amazing to me. Now, Sean and Kaden, you get a chance to coach together. Kaden, can you talk a little bit about that balance of being like Coach Quirk versus like, that's my dad, What's that like?
100%. And this is kind of a funny story. Over the summer, we're like, all right, we're kind of doing this now. And he's Coach Quirk in the locker room, and I'm Coach Q in the locker room. So it's kind of hard to differentiate between 2 Coach Quirks for our guys at points. But it's a really cool balance. And, growing up, I was able to pick his brain on the game and on culture and everything like that. So those conversations definitely didn't just start this past fall. A lot of my coaching philosophy is built off certainly my dad and Coach Bugbee and the way that they lead, which is awesome. But there's also an aspect to it that is definitely really cool. We know each other like the back of our hands. So, some things that I'm thinking on the field, I can look over at him and, give him kind of a head nod, and he kind of knows where my head's at. So that piece is really cool as well.
Is there ever a moment, at the dinner table with the family where one of you is just like, all right, like, can we stop talking about lacrosse for a few minutes here?
Yeah, I'm sure my younger sister.
Your mom should get involved in this question.
Yeah. I was gonna say I'm sure my younger sister Peyton at points is sick and tired of us about talking about what we want to run in our ride or defensively. But we haven't really hit the point yet where we're like, all right, let's shut it off yet. So.
Yeah, just annoy the family members, but so. Obviously, Coach Bugbee, we've talked about it, 42 years. When did you know that it was time to step down? Was that like a feeling that kind of grew or culminated over a few years, or were you just finally like, okay, I got to go? Like, how did that transition happen for you?
That's a really good question because it's not an easy one to answer, but a good question. Yeah, That's got to get to a point. You know what I mean? I just, I don't really know. I never really said, well, I'm going to coach on X age or X number this or that, or to achieve this or this. I never really had, I'm not a big bucket list guy. I don't try to live my life like I got to fill that bucket up before I do this. Because I just think it leads to a lot of disappointment. So I try not to live my life like that. So I never really had an end point. But over the last few years, you say, well, it gets to a point maybe it's time to turn it all over. One of the biggest things for me, though, is I had always said to myself, I'm never going to stay too long. That was one of my goals, though. I never wanted to be there like where people are like, oh, Coach Bugbee, he's just washed up, or he's lost his energy or his drive, and I don't feel that. I feel like I could coach another 5 years, like I really could, and that to me is almost a really good sign when it's time to stop. Like, I'm not saying at the top of the game, but in terms of my own energy and desire and all that, it's no less than it ever was. I feel just as driven to be successful and give the kids, my feeling always is students only have one shot to be a college athlete. They should get the best possible experience they can, because it's one of those special times of their life. Being a college athlete myself, you don't get that back, at the best time of their life in so many ways, relationship wise, and I just felt like I never want to get to the point where I was gypping them of that opportunity. So I took the team to Italy a year ago. Like we just kept doing things like that. Like I really felt like I kept my motor going, and for them and for myself too. But it just gets to a point where, okay, that's probably good. 42 years. That's probably a good round number, I guess, I joke all the time that Springfield, the school fired me because they wouldn't renew my 42-year contract, and I felt like, but anyway, it was a good time. And then honestly, when I found out that Sean was going to be available, that kind of like, I don't know. I'm a pretty religious person. I kind of felt like God was saying to me, okay, this is a good time, because the timing was just perfect. Like, I don't know if a year earlier Sean would have been available, or a year later if Sean would have been available. It was right now is the time that we get the right guy, and someone's going to make me feel really as connected as I want to be to the program in a good way. So the timing was right, and I got 6 grandkids too. So that's kind of fun to hang out with them whenever I can too. So
get in there and coach some youth lacrosse.
Yeah, that'll be next. That'll be next for sure. Yeah. I'm actually going to work at camp this summer with one of my grandsons. He's going to probably be my roommate at camp this summer. So
That's awesome.
That'll be a lot of fun,
That's great. And, like we said earlier, you're still connected to the program. You're still at practices and things like that. But as you kind of step aside and watch Sean and Kaden take over a little bit here, what do you hope the next 42 years of Springfield men's lacrosse look like?
Well, the thing that I'm really most excited about with those guys is there's some cool traditions we have, some cool program things we've done over the years. I think that have, they've come after 40 odd years of trying different things and different things that work. And I think we've come upon some things that work pretty good for the program that fit the Springfield model, I guess I would say. But the beauty of Coach Quirk and Kaden he'll maintain it too, is that, and I tell Sean all the time, just because we've done things that are pretty good doesn't mean they can't always be better, and I just see so many ways he's taken something that we've done that's worked pretty good and just put his own fingerprints on it, his own signature on it. And I tell him all the time, I probably drive him nuts because I got more time in my hands right now. So I come up with all these ideas. Hey, why don't you try this? Why don't you do this? And why don't you, I've got a book I want him to read and all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, but tell me to shut up anytime you want. Like, if I'm too much, if you need me to pump the brakes, I'll pump them. But right now I'm just going to say, I heard something that the Patriots do with a game day captains. I just threw that by him one day. I said, that would be pretty cool. I said, I think I would do that if I was here. But I'm not here. You're here. So whatever, throw that out the window or think it's kind of cool. But I just think he's super receptive to that stuff. At the same turn, I hope he feels like I'm not overstepping myself. But I have such confidence that they'll just maintain all these cool things and then bring some new idea. I mean, he's already done so many cool things. Even where they are in the locker room, I wish they were in a much better spot than I had, because we were in the same locker room with the guys, which I think is it's kind of part of our culture a little bit, which is kind of cool. But they're in a better spot in the locker room than I was by the door, which is kind of a stupid place to be. And he put them in the back corner, which is, I wish I thought of that, but it's a little thing. But yeah, I think he's going to keep recruiting great student athletes, great men of character and integrity, and they'll just keep working their tails off for them in the program. And, I think, I can't wait to watch, the success of the program. I'm their biggest fan, that's for sure.
So I think you maybe almost answered my next question for Sean,
Right.
which was, how do you honor the tradition while still evolving the program?
Yeah, it's a great question, Lindsay. I think, again, I'm a byproduct of Springfield College, Springfield men's lacrosse, Coach Bugbee, my former teammates. And, as I mentioned, I've carried a lot of what I've learned through coach and the program into my personal life and certainly my coaching career over the last number of years. And when I looked at coming back to Springfield, I replayed a lot of games when I was at my previous institution of coaching against Springfield, right? And those were some of the greatest moments and some of the toughest moments as well. You're coaching against your mentor. Coach and I are probably two of the more ultra competitive people that want to win. But at the same time, it's like whether you won or lost the game, we would just always give each other a big hug, and tell each other we love them. And when I came back, this summer as the head coach, I replayed so many moments of when I was a student athlete here, coaching against Springfield. And we did an alumni event this fall where we had 6 different alums come back and be a panel to the team. And it was somebody from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, 2020s. And as each alum spoke, their message was the same on their experience at Springfield. And then we did some roundtable stuff with those gentlemen, with our current players. And the program has maintained that culture for many of decades. And that's something, and Coach alluded to it, we're doing a lot of the same type of things that we've done since I was here as a player and previously. They've won a ton of games, a ton of championships, a national title. So again, I'm coming back to maintain everything that this program has achieved. And how does it evolve? Hopefully it evolves like any great business or organization, is to continue on that upward trajectory. I'd be foolish and not to say, as a player here, I won a national title with Coach Bugbee. Like, that's one of our goals, is to bring another national title to Springfield College. And it's something we don't talk about every day. It's part of the process, part of the journey of how to get there. Will we win conference championships? Will we win a national championship? I can't guarantee that, but we'll strive every day to get there through the great young men that we coach and that we recruit. And it's recruiting that Springfield type of player. So, and I look to Coach Bugbee, he jokes, about different ideas he has, and he does. He's got more time on his hands than he did a year ago when he was the head coach. But my success as a head coach at the collegiate and professional level has always been about the people I've surrounded myself with. Great assistant coaches, great mentors, and there's no one at the top of the food chain greater than Coach Bugbee in that regard. So I'm going to continue to lean on certainly him and others, certainly my assistant coaches. I have Kaden. I have 6 other assistant coaches that I lean on every single day to continue to build this program to where Coach Bugbee had it and where it was when we came in and where we want to go. But I always say the only thing I can do is screw it up, because we got a great thing going here, and we're just continuing to try to get better, every single day that we're here.
So, Kaden, what excites you about building this next era?
Yeah, I think it can be phrased as just building off of everything that we were left with. And that was something for me transferring here as a player that was really exciting. I knew there was so much history and tradition, and so many people who were so passionate about the program and the institution as a whole. And, being on the coaching side of it now, it's just pouring that passion that I truly and genuinely have within the program and the school itself into our players every single day. And, they do such a good job of reciprocating that and showing up every single day with the will to work and the will to get better, to ultimately leave the program better than they found it. And looking back on my playing career, that's something that I certainly tried to do as well. And it's really cool now on the coaching side to see that our guys are consistently doing the same.
So, as kind of the young guy in the group here, Kaden, 20 years down the road, where do you hope to be?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't necessarily have a great answer for that. It's something that I've, certainly talked with my dad and Coach Bugbee about at points. And, very similar to that last answer, it's kind of that process and taking every day as part of that process, not necessarily looking too far down the line. I'm really, really fortunate and proud to be coaching at Springfield right now. And every day that I wake up, it's the best day in the world. It feels like I'm at Disney, driving to campus every day, getting to coach a bunch of guys that I have great relationships with, that I played with, and in a program that I'm really passionate about. So the future, I'm hoping will just kind of take care of itself at this point, and we'll figure that out as time passes here.
Lindsay, do you mind if I add something real quick?
Oh, please do.
Coach Quirk and I, we talk about this off. We just talked about just a couple of days ago. Kaden has an incredibly bright career ahead of him. He's the real deal. Like he's gonna do great. I am at 100% confidence that he's in the right field. He should be a coach. He's got the ability to affect people's lives in that area, and I just think he's got a great future ahead of him. I know we're both anxious to make that first phone call whenever he's ready for a recommendation or this or that. And I think if people were smart, they should get in line to hire him down the road. I think he's going to be, a career like his dad had, for sure. Really successful, but doing it the right way, with relationships built on, relationships with people and creating a positive culture and creating a great experience for kids. But definitely a gifted coach in a lot of ways.
Thanks, Coach.
High praise. High praise coming from the best.
It's easy.
So, Coach Bugbee, obviously, again, we could sit here all day and talk about everything you've accomplished, but you are one of the few people who can say they have something named after them at their former place of employment. Can you talk about what that means to you and your family? You have the Bugbee Family Pavilion and Lindsay's Lookout. Can you talk to us about what that means to you and your family?
Yeah, that's a little hard one to talk about, just because it's a little overwhelming. Certainly never in a million years expected our family name on something at school, for sure. And circumstance in our life, some challenges that my wife and I faced with our daughter Lindsay, maybe I don't know, accelerated that or just, I don't know, put that in a different light maybe. But for whatever reason, I just can't begin to tell you how much gratitude I have that the school would even think about doing something like that. And Coach Quirk was, there was some, it was, what was really cool about that building. It was 100% alums, men's lacrosse. They could have asked help from women's lacrosse or field hockey or football because they all use that field and would certainly have their post-game stuff in that building. But they determined that they just want to make sure this happened on their own. And there was some really vital alums really involved with that. Sean being one of them that just like determined to get this done. And it's pretty amazing. I don't, it's like I said, this one's a little hard to talk about just because it's overwhelming. But I am full of gratitude and full of appreciation that occurred. And just, it's really cool. It's just a place to celebrate life. That's what it really is. It's a place for you. Win or lose the game, you go in there and, be a family in there, which is really cool. And it's the name family needed. One thing, the family name is on there, which is great. And that's what I think what makes it really fitting. My athletic director was trying to say, how about we call it the Keith Bugbee, whatever. I said, no. That's Bugbee family, like I don't want my name on that. I mean, it's just the way it is the way it should be, and the way our team family, is connected to that. So it's really cool. But thanks.
Absolutely, Sean. So Sean, obviously you were a part of as well. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I'm sorry. Can you just repeat that?
Sorry, Coach Bugbee mentioned that you were one of the alums who helped bring that to life. Can you talk a little bit about your role in that as well?
Yeah, again, it was so many alums that initiated the thought of doing this for Coach and his family, and then just all the alums, the outpour of support in every way, really came together with that committee that was, regularly meeting with Dr. Poison, the director of athletics, and Dr. Cooper, the president of Springfield College, and their support, was just tremendous with the alumni. And it was really important to the alums to have this, building named after Coach. And like he said, most importantly, his family, because they've given so much, It's Coach Bugbee, the head coach, but Jane, his wife, like she was around at every game, every tailgate, and his children, Lindsay and Jenna and David, and then their spouses and their his and Jane's grandkids, just at so many events. And that's what this building represents, is, like Coach said, family. So we do events in there before games. We do events after games. We do alumni events in there. And it's all about those relationships and the people. And that, at the end of the day, is everything that matters. I can't really tell you too much about the wins and losses, when I was a player and as a GA here, but I can tell you hours and days and weeks and months and years of stories about bus rides and time in the locker room and just those relationships. And that's what this building certainly represents, as Coach said.
Well, it's certainly, I'm sure, a great honor and something that Springfield student athletes will get to enjoy, I'm sure, for a long, long time. I've taken up probably way too much of your time, being that, you're in season, but we usually like to wrap it up with just some quick lightning round questions. So I will throw this out to Coach Bugbee. You've had 42 years. I'm sure you've built some rivalries. What do you think your best memory about a Springfield rivalry was?
There's some teams that we've been playing for a long time, but I mean, we had some, and Sean will certainly relate, that we've had some wars with Western New England College for being right down the street. And John Kopacki was a teammate of Sean's. So we've just had some battles with them over the years, and they've been great. And on the years when Coach was at Endicott, we had some battles with Endicott. I will remember though, one year when Sean beat us. So, and he again, like he said, we give a nice hug after the game, but he actually felt bad. I don't think Cleo ever felt bad when he beat us. But Sean actually felt bad, and you said it to me. He goes, I don't know. It says something like that. It doesn't seem right that I'm beating you. I'm like, well, you beat us, like it's a great win, man. But yeah, just some good, Middlebury, ton, never not played them for 42 years. Games like that, at Western Wing. There's so many, just a lot of great rivalries, But
Definitely.
it's the people behind it, the coaches, not the team,
Yeah, some tough in conference rivalries too. So
Well, now it's that conference. I mean, I don't know if this is about the conference discussions here, but man, oh man, those guys are doing a great job. I mean, it is not, as they say, it's not your grandfather's conference. You know what I mean? It's not the conference. It's amazing. I tell Sean all the time, it's become the show up conference. If you don't show up, you got a long day ahead of you in every single game, top to bottom, and the top is really impressive right now,
absolutely. No
right.
gimmies.
No.
So Sean and Kaden, you both obviously played for Coach Bugbee. Can you think back to maybe like the hardest practice that he ever put you through?
Wow.
Kaden,
you can kick it off here.
Yeah, every practice was you had to bring the right mindset and competitive edge, because they were always just fast-paced practices. But I look back and the most challenging practice we ever had was in the fall of '95 after we won the national title. And I say that because you're coming off the pinnacle of winning it all. And we felt pressure. We felt the need to repeat. And it was just a mindset that Coach brought to us. Like, hey, he humbled us pretty quick, like that was last year. This is a new year. And I'll never forget that practice on Stag Field, that we were just locked in and we were committed as teammates and brothers and as a family to go after this, again, that season. And that practice really stood out to me.
Yeah, and I think my answer, I think Coach did such a great job when I was playing here, of just making every day a hard day in preparation for those, Wednesdays and Saturdays that we competed versus a different color. So I don't necessarily have, one specific practice, but in terms of preparation, for me, looking back on it, every day was intentional, built with purpose, so that we were ready to play someone else.
Kaden and Sean, between the two of you, who's the most competitive? And Coach Bugbee, you have some insight here as well, if you want to throw in your 2 cents.
That's a great question.
I'd like to hear Coach Bugbee's thoughts on this one.
Yeah, throw me on the bus here. Yeah. I don't really, honestly, I'm not to say that. I don't know if I could say one's more competitive than the other. They're both freaking competitors, man. I mean, I glad I had both of them in the goal for me, man. Both want to win, man. I don't, not that I wouldn't say they're sore losers, but they don't take loss very well. They just have such high expectations. I mean, the bar is high, I guess you and Coach Quirk, I guess, should share with me. I guess you guys had a little competition practice, I guess, recently, huh?
Well, and I don't know if that's another question from Lindsay, but watching Kaden grow up, right? Just playing a multitude of different sports from the time he was little, like in youth sports, he was just ultra competitive. And I would say to him, right, Kaden, after games, and my wife Luce, and even his sister Peyton, it would be like he was 5 or 6 years old, and maybe they lost or they won, but he didn't play his best, and he's just like on a mission to keep getting better. And he's been like that his whole life. And I see that in a really positive way, him as a coach doing that now. He never gets down. He never shows his emotions. But I mean, I'm ridiculously ultra competitive, but I think he might have the edge on me in this one, just watching his whole life on, being an athlete and now as a coach. So he does it in a really positive way. I'm proud of him in that sense.
All right, Kaden, you win. Out to all three of you, if you did not make coaching lacrosse your profession, what would you have done?
I'd be a
Or
carpenter.
even a plan B?
I'd be a carpenter.
Carpenter, all right.
I love working with my hands and do stuff like that. You know what I mean? Good side job for me.
I think a teacher of some sort would be my answer there. Phys ed teacher, high school level.
I mean, Lindsay, I can't imagine doing anything else. Honestly, I came to Springfield as an elementary ed major, and I'd probably say teaching, just being with young people and mentoring and leading them. But as I'm maybe, I don't know, midway through my career right now, say, and I just can't imagine doing anything else. It's such a rewarding field and position to be in, to be able to be around young people and see their growth. It's just so gratifying when they grow, and couldn't imagine really doing anything else, honestly.
So I was going to ask each of you to describe the other in one word, but I feel like that word's just going to be competitive. Is there any other words to describe Coach Bugbee? One word to describe Coach Bugbee.
I'd say legend right off the top of my head.
Legend. Love it. How about Sean?
That's crazy.
Yeah, I certainly agree with Kaden, but at the end of the day, you could use so many words to describe Coach, but it's show up. He's always there for everyone, really. I don't know how he finds the time in a 24-hour period to either text former players, to call former players, to check in on them, to see how they're doing, see how their families are doing. He's remarkable in that sense, that he shows up for you. And I think part of it is, his guys show up for him and his family in a lot of ways too, but he's just such an unselfish person that he just gives his life to everyone. So.
All right, final question. I'm going to go around to each of you. If you could just use one word to describe Springfield men's lacrosse. We'll start with you, Coach Bugbee.
Family. Lindsay, I hate to interrupt you, but you had another question on there. And Kaden being as competitive, as I am, about who would win in a goalie drill.
I was scared to ask that question after you guys answered the competitive one. I was like, I don't want to start a family feud here.
Oh, it's okay. So if we may just get to that question before the other one. Sure. And
why do you want to go to that question? You know the answer,
I'm gonna pass it.
You proved in practice the other day, didn't you?
Yeah.
All right, so that question that Sean's referring to is who wins in a goalie drill right now? Sean or Kaden?
Go, Kaden, definitely 100%.
I can take it. And it's a cool segment that we do every single day at the end of every practice. We really preach competing to our guys and everything that they do. So the last 2 minutes of every practice, we just compete. It can be as simple as rock, paper, scissors. It can be, a wheelbarrow race. So yesterday at practice and in preparation for today, and I didn't know this was going on at all. The competition was that myself and my dad were going to get in between the pipes. So we had goalie sticks, and we randomly picked 2 players from our team to shoot on us. We had no gear on.
Tennis balls.
And I'll leave him with the stage to share who won.
We're probably time sensitive here, but Kaden made the first save. My shot went wide, so it's 0-0. The next shot that went by my ear, I didn't even see it. I couldn't even react. My reaction time isn't great anymore. And then Kaden proceeded to make a ridiculous save with the goalie stick. And the last shot Kaden faced, he threw down the goalie stick, picked up a short stick, and made a ridiculous save. So he's the champion in the family. I'm humbled to say it, but he's got that one with no surprise.
Well, we don't need to get into it, but we could also talk about in your prime who's going to win, but we won't go there right now.
Ooh, that's a different question. Yeah.
That's a different question. That one's going the other way, I think.
But Lindsay, you asked me earlier, how do you succeed? How do you maintain success for 42 years? I mean, these are the kind of guys I coached, right? I mean, it kind of answers the question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
These kind of,
Love it. I
this
love
is what I had, right? This is what I had,
The unapologetic competitiveness is something that, even as an athlete myself, but even doing this podcast, whenever I talk to a coach who wins a lot, they're just so unapologetic about how competitive they are. And that's always fun to hear. And it's a trait that I find in coaches that definitely leads to some of that success. So again, circling back, Coach Bugbee, one word to describe Springfield, you said family.
Yeah, that's easy.
Sean, how about you?
Family.
Family. Kaden?
Family.
Love it. Well, this has been so much fun to have the 3 of you here. We could have spent, I think, 6 hours here. Obviously, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just want to thank you. I want to congratulate you, Coach Bugbee, on such an incredible career. I hope that you are able to enjoy retirement, spend time with your family, and still stay connected to Springfield Lacrosse. Sean and Kaden, I want to wish you good luck this year. We're just hard to believe. February, we're underway here. So good luck to both of you, and I'll be rooting for you guys.
Lindsay, this has been great. I really appreciate that. And you're sensitive and caring questions, and just put a lot of time and effort into this. I really appreciate that. This was really a special time, and I really enjoyed listening to those 2 guys too, Doc. And really special. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Yeah, thank you.
Guys.